Welcome to today's Explainer. I'm just incredibly excited to be with you today because we're going to do something truly fascinating. We're breaking down the pure psychological mechanics behind a literally terrifying piece of microfiction. It's this brilliant short tale called The Forest of Hollow Grins. We're going to deconstruct exactly how an author can manipulate our emotions, play with our expectations, and generate just absolute dread using only a handful of carefully chosen words. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. I want you to imagine, just for a second, hearing those exact words whispered directly into your ear in the pitch black. You were not lost. I brought you here, right? It instantly sends a chill down your spine, doesn't it? That single sentence is the emotional anchor of the entire story we're analyzing today. It takes everything the protagonist thought they knew about their situation and just completely shatters it. It's the ultimate loss of control. But, how do we get to such an impactful, terrifying payoff?
To understand how that scare is actually built, we first need to look at the format itself, microfiction. This is a highly condensed form of storytelling. The author doesn't have hundreds of pages to build up world lore or heavy backstory. They have to rely on brevity, intense focus, and highly targeted sensory details. Fun fact, actually, some of the most famous microfiction out there is literally just 6 words long. But here, the author uses a few tight paragraphs to totally weaponize our primal fears. In an explainer like this, dissecting microfiction is brilliant because we can see exactly how every single sentence acts as a mechanism. There is absolutely zero wasted space.
Section 1. The Primal Fear.
We're going to look closely at how the author skips right past all those complex setups and immediately taps into a universal human phobia, the deep, dark woods. The story opens with a masterclass in atmosphere. Deep in the silent woods, where even the wind seemed afraid to breathe. Notice those sensory words? Silent, afraid, breathe. It's incredibly oppressive. The author isn't just telling you it's a forest, they're actually personifying the environment itself as something that is terrified. And, well, if the wind is afraid to even breathe, what chances our lone traveler Armand have? It instantly immerses us in this hushed, suffocating atmosphere.
Now, what's really interesting here is how the environment is framed as an active, hostile entity. The setting isn't just a passive backdrop, it's practically the antagonist. We just talked about the wind being afraid, but then the author tells us the darkness is swallowing the path behind Armand. That's active consumption, right? He literally cannot go back. And the trees, they aren't just passive wood and leaves. They have twisted branches stretching out like grabbing fingers. The very world around Armand is literally reaching for him.
Section 2. Isolating the target.
Once the environment is established as totally hostile, the author methodically begins to strip away Armand's normal senses. What we're seeing here is the monsters, and frankly the author's, masterful blueprint for trapping their prey. It's 3 highly effective steps. First, you isolate the target by letting the darkness swallow their escape route. Next, you mimic their movements, which creates a deep, unsettling sense of paranoia. And finally, you trap them completely. This logical step-by-step process is exactly what makes the fiction feel so disturbingly plausible.
I want you to think about a time you were completely alone in the dark. Maybe you were in a quiet house or walking down an empty street late at night. You know that sudden, terrifying hyper-awareness? You hear a tiny sound and you just freeze. Well, this text weaponizes that exact relatable feeling. The story says, when he stopped, they stopped. When he turned, nothing was there, only endless blackness between the trees. The author forces Armand, and us really, to rely solely on hearing because our vision has been completely taken away. It's pure sensory deprivation.
Section 3. Escalating the dread.
And this brilliantly illustrates the relentless chronological escalation of tension we see in the text. Now that the trap is set, the story shifts from a creepy atmosphere into this relentless, driving pacing. We can map Armand's descent into panic almost like a timeline. We start at minute 1 with the silent trees and darkness. By minute 5, we introduce auditory paranoia, the slow, uneven matching footsteps. At minute 10, the threat elevates vertically with a faint broken whisper from above. And finally, by minute 12, the visual horror manifests, the hollow grin dropping to the ground. The threat gets closer, more specific, and way more unnatural with every single sentence.
And then the entity is finally revealed. Look closely at these specific descriptors. A faint, broken whisper calling his name. It already knows who he is. A pale figure hanging upside down from a branch. Upside down, that instantly signals something incredibly wrong, something completely defying gravity and natural order. Its hollow eyes locked onto his, an unnatural grin. And then, honestly, the most terrifying part, It drops silently to the ground. No heavy thud. Just silent, impossible movement.
Section 4. The paradigm shift.
The arrival of the entity triggers the absolute climax of the story. This is where the physical scare gives way to psychological horror through a truly terrifying realization. You see, flight is the natural human response to terror, right? So Armin tries to run. But the forest had changed. The same tree stood in every direction. The physical reality of the woods is literally bending around him. It's incredibly surreal. He isn't just in a forest anymore, he's in a manufactured nightmare where the normal laws of space and navigation just no longer apply. The trap is now a cage.
So the crucial point is this terrifying twist that completely strips away all of the protagonist's agency. This is where that cold open quote comes roaring back. Up until this exact second, Armand's perspective was, I am lost and trying to escape. But the entity shatters that illusion with its reality. You are exactly where I want you. He was never lost. He was being guided the whole time. The horror isn't just the monster itself. It's the dawning realization that Armand never had free will to begin with. Which brings us to the final, terrifying physical contact. A cold hand touched his shoulder. He screamed, but the woods swallowed the sound. Remember earlier when the darkness swallowed the path? Well, now the woods are swallowing his voice. His fate is sealed in absolute, oppressive silence. There's no rescue coming. The environment itself is completely complicit in his capture.
Section 5. Anatomy of the Aftermath.
The story doesn't just end with a scream, though. Let's analyze the lingering impact of the author's final, haunting sentence. The next morning, villagers found his footprints leading into the forest, but none ever came out. This is just brilliant. The author uses the external perspective of the villagers to confirm the absolute permanence of the trap. We never actually see what happened to Armin. We just see the empty void he left behind. By leaving it completely to our imagination, the silence literally speaks volumes. It forces our own brains to fill in the horrifying blanks.
Let's move to our conclusion and see how this builds our overall understanding of crafting a truly compelling scare. For anyone who loves the horror genre or wants to write it themselves, these are the key takeaways perfectly illustrated in this microfiction. First, exploit those primal fears of the dark and isolation. Second, deliberately pace the sensory deprivation. Take away sight, then slowly manipulate sound. Third, subvert the character's control and agency so they feel entirely helpless. And finally, leave the mystery unresolved. The monster you don't fully see is always scarier than the one you do.
By breaking down The Forest of Hollow Grins, we can see exactly how effectively language can manipulate our psychology. It's structured, it's deliberate, and it's devastating. I'll leave you with this thought as we wrap up our explainer today. When you turn out the lights tonight, what unseen footsteps might be matching your pace? And fundamentally, why do our human minds actually crave the very stories that are explicitly designed to keep us awake? Keep exploring, keep analyzing, and I'll see you next time.